Hello, good morning. How are we doing? Great. Great. So usually when I do a talk, I like to find a story, like a funny story that connects with the message, and I couldn't find one. So I began going through YouTube to see if there was anything I could find there, and I ran into a commercial for dry erase markers. I thought, okay, let's go with it. And the thing is, so the guy starts talking, they're having like a business meeting. It's an organization, they're having their like annual meeting. And they're talking about everything that the organization needs. All their different goals and objectives that they want to do for the coming year. And the owner, they're in a conference type room having their meeting. And the owner or the CEO, he kind of lets them know that what he feels and what he thinks that the organization actually needs is change. And so he turns around and he's going to write it down on the board. And as he's writing that down, he hears a bunch of noise and racket and just clanking. And when he turns around, every single employee had dropped all their pocket change on the table, thinking that it was going to be literal change, but it's not. I just thought it was so funny. So Unity of San Antonio is going through a change. There's going to be a new minister candidate that's going to be selected. And change it's not always easy. It can be difficult, but it's definitely always good. Now, how do we define change? As a transitive verb, change is defined like this: to make different in a particular way, to give a different position, course, or direction to replace with another, to make a shift. As an intransitive verb is to become different, to pass from one phase to another, to undergo transformation, transition, or substitution. Now, I know you know this, but progress is impossible without change. And Socrates, I love what Socrates has to say about change. He says, "The secret to change is to focus all your energy on not fighting the old, but on building the new." Focus all your energy on building the new. So imagine if we shifted our focus from a change is coming, but from talking like how bad it's going to be, right? We tend to go in there like, this is going to be horrible. We start making all kinds of assumptions about it and how bad it's going to be. And we complain about it. We tend to do that. That's like a tendency. So what if we take all that energy and we just shift it and put it all into building and supporting what's coming? Take that same energy, just put it over here and help build what's coming. But in order to do that, in order to make a change, we first have to accept the change to be able to receive it. But in order to accept it, we have to understand it first. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, do we believe that the change that is coming is for our best interest? Do we know all the pluses and the minuses? Do we know the risk? Do we know the time and energy that it may take from our part? So you see, for change to go smooth, we have to be able to take all parties into consideration. And we have to be able to take all sides into consideration. Only when we have done this can we then be in a position to accept. Now, the root word of accept comes from the Latin word capare, C-A-P-E-R-E, capare, which means to seize or to take. Now, in the form captus, it gives us three roots: cap, C-A-P, capt, C-A-P-T, and sept, C-E-P-T. Now, all the words that come from that word capare have something to do with taking. I'll give you a few examples. Anyone capable, C-A-P, cap, anyone capable of doing something, is able to take on that task. To capture is to take something or someone with force, by force. So C-A-P-T, capture. To accept, C-E-P-T, is to take willingly. So to accept is to be willing. When you're willing, it moves you from the place you're at to a higher one, a more expansive one, where you can actually see all sides. When you're willing to accept the change that's coming or what's happening in your current experience, you're better equipped to change your experience of it. Even if everything stays the same around you, you're able to change within yourself. If you're not able to accept it, then the question is not, why not? The better question is, what am I not accepting about myself? Okay? Because what you don't accept is what you're battling with. So I would ask myself these questions when I'm in that situation. What am I not accepting about me? What am I resisting? What am I fighting? What is the cause of inner conflict? The state of conflict that you're in is simply your resistance to what is happening. And I said this last time, what is happening, in my experience, does not match the concept that I have in my head of how it should be. And so there's going to be the conflict. When you finally open up to it, when you're willing, when you allow it, when you're willing, the conflict ends. When you're able to open up to it without any fear. When you move from a state of resistance to a state of allowing. So to accept is to allow. The state of allowing brings harmony. Because it's the state of being open to life. It's the place where you let go of your conflict, your opposition. It's the place where your fearful resistance goes away. Initially, this can be challenging because of the fear of something going wrong, because we may feel defenseless, we may feel vulnerable, and because we feel like we're letting go of control. And we know how much we love that. But with practice, what you realize is that allowing becomes effortless and it's powerfully transformative. Because the more you allow, it can break through your set mind patterns, because we get so set on that. And it could also help you change your personality, because it'll move you in the direction of a more balanced way of being. When it comes to allowing, when I first started my experience with allowing, did anybody see the movie Yes Man? The Yes Man with Jim Carrey? Right? That's what I started doing. I became a yes man. Especially when I felt my resistance and I wanted to say no. No. So this is stuff that you actually have to practice. You have to actually practice it. If not, you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Now, I recently learned something different about practicing. Because I used to think that, meditation and this concept, this is where we practice how to play the game of life. But now I'm seeing that it's more of training. It's more of my preparation. When I go meditate, I'm not practicing. Even though we call it a meditation practice, I'm really preparing and I'm training so that I can go practice. Because the only way I practice is by doing it. By doing it. And I got this metaphor from the founder of the company that I work for. He was talking about his son. He plays baseball. He hired a new baseball coach for him, a new pitching coach for him. And he was telling me, we're getting ready for a conference, and I have to do one of the classes. So he's kind of coaching me and giving me perspective on how else I could do it better. And he says, think about being in a batting cage. If you're going to practice hitting in a batting cage, that's not the same thing as batting in a real game. So practice in the batting cage is not practice. And that's what I got from what he was telling me, that it's not practice. That's called training and preparation. And so when I go meditate and I sit and I'm practicing letting go and letting be, I'm not practicing. I'm just preparing myself. I'm training so that I can go do it. The practice happens in the doing. Now, the biggest challenge that we tend to face when we're starting to enter into the state of allowing is our own darkness. facing our own shadows, dealing with the sadness that potentially can exist there, the anger, the hatred, the resentment, the fears. It's dealing with that part of ourselves that we have spent so much time getting away from. Now, it all depends on how much of it was suppressed and how much of it got accumulated. So it depends on the person. But once you enter this constant state of allowing, what you realize that the circumstances have no power over you. That neither do outside influences. Because you're no longer hiding from yourself. Okay? You're no longer, you're not denying anything from life or about life. So therefore the mind has nothing to hold you hostage. Because think about when somebody insults you or offends you. That's impossible. That's a choice you're making. Because usually what happens is, what they're saying is, number one, true, but you haven't accepted it yet. Because if it was true and you accepted it, you'd be like, yeah, he's right. And if it wasn't true, then he wouldn't be able to offend you, or she wouldn't be able to offend you, because it's not true. So think about it. Anytime you feel offended or insulted, probably what they're saying is true, you just haven't accepted it yet. So that's what this is talking about, is getting into our own shadow side and being able to see it and say, yep, there it is. Now I can do something with it. Because without being able to accept it, I could not change it. Like I was saying in the beginning, when you get into a position of accepting something, now you're in a better position to change your experience of it. Now, what you realize is that now that you can do that, now that you're able to accept yourself, right? You're not hiding from yourself anymore. You're not denying anything. You're not resisting anything. Now you're able to live freely without the need for any kind of dependence or on anything or anyone with from a place of fear. Because we can depend on each other. But there's a difference between depending on, I'm relying on him to help me today. I depend on him to do his part, and he depends on me to do my part. But I'm not depending on him to tell me who I am. Okay? Or to determine that this is going to go successful or not. That's my responsibility. He's got his responsibility. But it's about the whole dependency on something or someone from a place of fear. Okay? Because now that you've done that, you're surrendered. You have surrendered to life. You have surrendered to yourself, to who you are, to what is. And the harder your fight, the more you struggle with it, the harder your conflict, the harder your surrender will be. So to accept is to surrender. Surrender to what is. Let go of what was, and have faith on what will be. That's a quote by Sonia Ricotti. She's a motivational speaker. She's the CEO of Lead Out Loud. Surrender to what is, let go of what was, and have faith on what will be. Change is the essence of life. Everything is changed. Everything is in a constant state of flux. You've got to be willing, you've got to allow, and you've got to surrender what is for what could be. Now, when you came in, they gave you a pen and a piece of paper, right? I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to jot down the answers. Everybody ready with their pens? And by the way, you can keep the pens. They're colorful and they're pretty. So I want you to pinpoint something that you're fighting or that you're resisting, or something that you're not able to accept. It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. Pinpoint something you're resisting, that you're fighting, or you're not able to accept. And you don't have to write it down, just bring it to your mind's eye. Now here's the first question. What are you afraid that will happen? What are you afraid will happen? That's something you're afraid, that's something that you're resisting, that's something you can't accept, that's something that you're fighting. What are you afraid will happen? And this is your card. Nobody else needs to see this. This is for you. The next question is that true? And I don't mean true as in like, well, it's my perception. Is it truth? What you think will happen, is that true? And it can be as simple as yes or no, however you want to answer that. The next question about that thing that you're maybe not accepting, it's hard or difficult to accept. What's the worst thing that will happen if you don't control the outcome? What is the worst thing that will happen if you don't control the outcome? And the last question is it absolutely true that your situation will be worse if it doesn't work out the way you think it should? Is it absolutely true that your situation will be worse if it doesn't work out the way you think it should?